Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com, and if you're playing Avowed for the first time, I want to give you some helpful tips of how to get the best start. So when you very first start the game, what do you do? What's your priorities? What are good overpowered weapons? What are great skills? How should you be going about crafting, and what's your overall priorities? So if you want a clear direction on how to start the game, this is it. After over 100 hours, this is what I've learned. Okay, step number one, do not stress about character creator. This is a role-playing game, and essentially the character creator is going to give you a background choice that's really useful for how your roleplay plays out, not so much your build. So you cannot respec your background. That will be the very first choice that you get. Think of this as mainly dialogue. It will also introduce you to weapons through the tutorial. My recommendation, playing a meathead character like I always do, is war hero, but depending on your RP flavor and what your story you want to be, pick a background that makes sense. Do not stress about it. So after you pick your background, you're going to go through the tutorial, take your time, loot everything, do the basics, get used to the game. Now, what's going to happen is it's going to drop you off in this little dock area. From there, you're going to have some very specific priorities that I want you to focus on. First, you're going to go up to the merchants early on, and you do not want to spend your gold on potions. That's a big tip. They're super expensive, and yes, they burst heal you. The better way to go about it is food. So specifically, the little food that does healing over time, this is a slower healing over time, but it's so much more cost effective. And with some passives I'm going to show you a little bit later, you can make so overpowered food you never have to use a potion again. Specifically when you're in combat or post-combat, you can pre-buff by taking this food of essence or health and slowly start replacing or replenishing your bar. Now, if you get done post-fight, remember that you can fast travel to a camp at any time and sleep there, and it will refresh your health. And then you can just hit exit from previous location and boom, heal to full without blowing all of your resources on potions. If you have any gold, what you're going to want to do is not sell your weapons. You're going to want to break those down because this game is all about upgrading your gear. More about that later. If you're an idiot like me, you're going to sell all of your gear and then be stuck getting face melted because you cannot upgrade that wand, that two-hander, to do more damage to more harder, difficult bosses. So don't sell the weapons, break them down and use them for materials. You can sell gems and other little trinkets that will help you get some gold, or just scour the area, check every little nook and cranny for tons of materials laying around. Then you also want to buy lockpicks, and if they have treasure maps or some type of quest-based item, these are the biggest things to buy early on. So you got 3 vendors here right away, and I always grab these guys, see what we have for sale. And grenades are also very helpful, more on that a little bit later, but don't spend any of your resources on these actual weapons. You're going to get tons of them to drop later on, and then you can see they break down for iron chunk. You're going to need that to get to the best gear later on in the game. Typically, you want to have a couple weapons and a couple armor types and use them throughout the entirety of the game because the materials to upgrade to the final quality are just so dreadful to get to. So make sure you pick up lockpicks here. These Wayfarer's gloves are also very helpful if you're playing Sword and Shield. They do cost 600 gold though, so be aware. Some of these vendors will have unique items very early in the game. And you can see here that these potions are 75 gold, but look at this. Apple, cabbage, carrot. Yeah, it's 5 essence, but if you take a bunch of them, it will do very, very well in comparison to a 75 gold essence potion. Now, after you stock up on these vendors, what you're going to want to do is go explore the town and go find any NPC with an exclamation point and really just talk to any NPC. They will have a bunch of different side quests and explore this area thoroughly because you can find tons of material, gold, anything you need at the start of the game right in this beginning area. So once you get this all explored, I would go over here, explore this, explore the Fellowship Harbor, and just loot everything you can in this main area, then unlock this party camp. Your goal at the very beginning of the game is to unlock Marius. He is the second companion. So what I did like a complete and total idiot is I had Kai only, and then I got all these side quests, and I tried to go basically do them all with only one companion and got absolutely face melted. So do not do that. Beeline the main story so you can get Marius unlocked and then the game becomes infinitely easier. Also, if you're doing side quest or quest, you're going to have little icons on the quest that indicate if it's going to be challenging for you or not. So it's going to have a skull, 1 skull all the way up to 3. If it doesn't have a skull, that means it's pretty easy or the items are on your level. What this is based off of is your individual item level, so your weapon that you have equipped, and then your armor. So you can see here I have this lava forge plate. It's amazing, not to brag, you should get it, but it takes a lot of materials to upgrade it. So when you see the individual enemies, the scaling of the enemy is related to the quest. It's not going to auto scale based on your level. The enemies are what they are. So if you don't have your armor and weapon upgraded to this quality, it will be very, very difficult for you at first. If you're using a wand early on, it's very hard to get unique, but something like this, the Philosopher's Riddle, you can find actually in the very beginning of the game right down here, and I kept it for the entire game and just upgraded it. So what I'm trying to tell you is you're going to need to select only 2 or 3 and do not upgrade a bunch of weapons early on because you will regret it, especially if they're not uniques. Okay, so you know what you need to do. You need to break down weapons, don't sell them. You're going to get a couple different weapon types, which I'll give you some suggestions on here in a little bit. But when it comes to combat, the number one thing you're going to want to rely on is, like I said earlier, is these consumables. So I have a ton of them, and you can see some of this 750 health generation. This thing will heal like an absolute truck, but you have all sorts of different buffs that you can use, and you get them pretty early on. Also, they stack with each other, so you can do a bunch of different buffs at one time, and they still run on top of healing and essence gain. So you can see in the bottom left of my screen, tons of these rolling on. So before fights or hard fights, make sure that you pre-buff. Dodge is a bit tricky in this game. You have to be strafing or backpedaling. So when you're encountering a target, make sure to kind of strafe slightly versus trying to go forward and you're hitting the space bar and you just jump up and down. Also, use grenades frequently. So grenades come in a variety of different shapes and sizes. Frag will knock down walls. Electric will hit that puzzle, electric puzzle. You have the frost and so on. But the damage over time on these are super significant as well. So if you're playing a two-handed build and you can't reach the target, chuck a grenade. You can also rotate and get different status effects. So you can throw this electric one when they're in water and shock them and blast them. Then you can back to back and throw another flame one on top of that and get 2 damage over times rolling on the target. Plus it keeps your time on target high if you're playing in a melee build and you can't reach the target. Now let's break down some really key abilities that I think you should get depending on your specific build and play style. So if I go to the fighter first, let me break down what I think is really good for the fighter. Charge is the obvious one you're going to have to take straight away. Do not sleep on constant recovery for every single build. After taking damage, slow to regenerate 50% of the last amount of health loss. This thing will really keep you alive and prevent you from using potions, consumables early on, and it lasts the entirety of the game, so it's super useful to have. If you're going to use sword and shield, this is helpful because you can stun the target and bash them. Very good. And if you're going to use heavy armor, this can help you with stamina regeneration. The rest of them in the early on are really dependent and focused on, let's say, doing specific melee damage. Like this is my favorite, bleeding cuts. Greatsword bleed accumulation. That provides a damage over time. And you have iron fists you can use unarmed, devastating criticals, but these aren't really that good. When you get to level 10, a couple that are helpful is power jump. So it basically makes you jump and crouch and do AoE damage. This with Barbaric Shout is very helpful to have a 1-2 combo for doing AoE. And it makes power jump essentially another skill that you can use. And then Built to Destroy. You can just destroy crates and everything else to get health and essence back, and it only takes 1 point. Very helpful. Now the Ranger is what I consider like the best skills in the game actually. One is Survivalist. So I recommend this on almost every single build because rank 2 will unlock stronger healing foods, which I've shown you a little bit earlier. Plus it's going to restore more health and essence, useful for every single build, and you can get it straight away. So I'd recommend at least 2 points into this regardless of what build. I don't do the Elden Ring blocking thing a lot, but if you do, this is a super helpful if you like that gameplay. I dodge a ton, so evasion is useful for me. My favorite ability probably overall in the game is Shadowing Beyond. It lets you go with stealth and you can nuke guys using this Divine Thorn. So you don't have to stealth and crouch behind them in the weeds. You can just cheese it by using this. Yes, it costs a lot of essence, but you can one-shot almost any of these enemies. You can also stealth res allies, so it's super helpful. The rest of these are kind of related to individual weapon types you use, but don't sleep on this, scavenging. So I love collecting all of the herbs and so on, and rank 2 crafting upgrade materials cost 25% less. This is going to be the bane of your existence when you hit endgame, so consider a couple points into that. Also, if you want to cheese it, you can respec, take 2 points into this, and then respec out of if you have massive upgrades. Also, my third favorite ability in the game is Bear Ally. What it does at level 18, you can have rank 2 unlocked. It's going to allow this bear to essentially tank for you for 45 seconds with a 25-second cooldown. So it taunts everything in the area and basically replaces Kai as a tank. And you can just use it as a skill, or you can use it in addition to Kai, freeing up a lot of different companion options if you're playing a DPS build. So do not sleep on this. And remember, you can mix and match any skill. You're not locked into one specific class. Now for the wizard, interestingly enough, you're going to be using these Grimoires. So it's an offhand weapon, and you have this Grimoire mastery, which unlocks Grimoire spells. But you can have the Grimoire equipped and still use some of the spells. Or you can take a skill point in it and unlock the spell. So if this doesn't make sense, me rambling, let me hit respec. Now we come to my skills, right? I don't have anything, I have a 2H equipped. But if I go into abilities and I go to wizard, we'll take this, and then I take Arcane Veil. Now I have them both on my bar and I don't have a Grimoire and I can still cast it. So it's not going to be as good as having the spell build unlocked, but it gives you some access to spells regardless of your build. Why this is super helpful is Arcane Veil specifically gives you a nice damage shield and damage reduction, really meant for mages, but you can use this if you're struggling with survivability at just 1 skill point, super helpful. This here, Minor Missile, is a great range damage thing, so if you're playing a two-hander build and you're just super frustrated, you don't want to swap to the bow, this is a really good skill to get a hold of. And this, the staff, will turn your weapon into a staff, allowing you to beat something and get essence back. So even if you're a wizard or other builds that rely on essence, this is a way that you can get essence back without consumables or potions. Then as you progress, you're going to want to invest in a Grimoire Mastery. Last thing on that universal skill that will really help you out is Blood Magic. Essence is depleted, you can continue casting by reducing your health. So what I did is use Giada as a healer companion, and I would use her spells constantly just to heal me while I was dipping into this wizard blood magic specific passive to constantly refresh and just spam my skills and abilities. So in essence, these are the best beginner skills that I would recommend depending on your build, but feel free to mix and match. Okay, so now what build should you do and or what weapon types? That's really up to you, but there are some that excel more than others in my opinion. So the Last Light of Day you can get very early in the game, and killing an enemy restores your maximum health. It's a one-hander. So you're going to come up here to this Pilgrim's Path and you're going to go through here. There's going to be a side quest that you can do called Dawn Treader. Fantastic quest. And you're going to be doing this alongside the main story quest very early, level 5 or 6. You can get it done even on the hardest difficulty. And then you're going to put a shield on. This one, I think you can get similar, same location roughly, but 5% chance to avoid melee attacks. You can bar swap, okay? The bar swap is going to have a bit of a delay, so it's not going to be buttery smooth, but you can put this on your back bar to turtle up and block whenever you need and get 2 unique weapons early on with a bunch of different set bonuses. So I'd highly recommend that as a beginner, regardless of what you go with your main hand. Now, main hand options. I love the two-handed playstyle, but I will admit the two-handed playstyle takes a while to get the actual sweaty weapons and the passives that make it do a lot of damage. So early on, what I think is one of the best is the long touch with a bow, because the bow has weak point damage. So when you aim down sights, you can see a little diamond over their head and hit them. Also, you can get unaware damage by sneaking in the tall grass and hitting targets as well. So you can kind of stack 2 mechanics on top of one. And early on, it's just the most powerful weapon to blast people. This one is going to be in the market. So if you go to this Paradise and you come up here, something around back here, you're going to find a military surplus shop, which you can purchase this unique weapon. And the strength of the weapon is at 5% damage against enemies with full health. So this is going to allow you to open up with a big, huge attack and then switch to whatever weapon like a sword and shield if you get in trouble. There's a bunch of more complex different setups and so forth. So you can even dual wield and be like a gunslinger. You have the grimoires, which are in your offhand, same as shield. So a lot of people are very popular is wand and then this grimoire. So the grimoire is a bit tricky. It's going to unlock spells, as you can see here, but it's also going to require this grimoire mastery specific sub passive. So you equip it in your offhand, and if you don't know how it works, this is a specific passive that you have to take to unlock more of these spells. So by default, it's going to unlock some spells, or you can actually just take them manually. Taking them manually allows you to increase their functionality if the grimoire doesn't have that. So for spellcasters, you're going to want a wand in your main hand and a grimoire in your offhand. This one in specifically, you can get pretty early on as a unique offhand. So to get this one, there is going to be a skeleton of a pyromancer right around this area here. So you can take the whatever cottage, go over here, there's a skeleton right around this area and get that. While you're scouring and looking for items, make sure you have Marius with you. You don't need another companion, and spam his ability to make sure treasures are found. It will give you a lot of insights into what you're missing. Now, the thing about wand in your main hand is they do not have a unique option at the very beginning of the game that I've found. So typically you're just going to take that common wand and upgrade it. Do not invest a ton into upgrading the wand, however, because you'll find unique ones in the second area after you move out of Dawnshore. Okay, now let's talk about upgrading stuff since I've talked about that a bit more. You come back to your camp after an introduction and you have a couple of different options, enchanting station and workbench. What I want you to realize is you want to basically only upgrade the unique weapons that you're going to use and only to the place that you're going to use them. So one thing it took me a lot of time to realize like an idiot is you have upgrades and you have this crafting tab. So apparently idiot stick me didn't realize that you can actually use previous materials and hit craft and upgrade it. So even when you're in late game, when you're collecting common items or fine items, they actually serve a purpose because you can use those, upgrade, 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 and finally get to that gold quality. So don't sell them. That's really important, and come here as quick as you can. The biggest thing that's going to hold you back is this Adra. So you're going to get access to this. You want to get one item to another quality and it will unlock more better material, specifically fine. So if I come down here, you can see that I click on this individual unique weapon and it goes from common, then I go here, then it puts the Adra in there, 4 more materials, and then I have to have Adra and so on. So just look at it like this. The game wants you to be at blue or fine quality before you move off from Dawnshore. And then every single place that you get to, it's going to be kind of like you need to be at purple. You need to be at, I don't even know what color that is, red? Something like that. Leave me a comment. What color is that? And then at the end of the game, you're going to be like, how do I get this thing maxed out? Well, spoiler alert, there's an instance-based area that you can't travel back from that gives you a gazillion mats. So don't freak out. You're probably going to hit legendary +3 on your main weapon and your armor. But just know you want to be at fine before you head off to the next area, exceptional, superb, so on and so forth. So just pick a couple weapons, use that, decon every single thing, and use it to level it up, and then save this Adra specifically for unique items. Do not make the mistake of upgrading the wrong one. You also have enchanting stations where you can get unique bonuses. So if we take this giant slumber here, you can take them, but you can only take one. So the obvious choice here is to lean into what your build wants to do. So if you take this, it's a permanent bonus. You cannot go back on the other action. You just have to hit the load button. So make sure it's the right one that you want, and do not spend a bunch of materials on rando weapons that you don't want to use. You really need to hone in and use specific ones and save your materials. Okay, you got a build. You know what to do upgrade-wise. I've yelled at you enough for that. You know to get Marius. What's next? There's going to be these totem things, and I'll show you over here, that will unlock really powerful bonuses. And the very first one you get, you need to find the base first before you can activate any bonuses. So you come all the way up here to Shrine of Wodika. I think I said it right. And this will give you the base. I've written guides on my website that have every single little fragment in it. But once you come up here and you're going to do this kind of main story quest, kind of up here in this area, you want to unlock this party camp and then kind of head east up the top. You don't even have to fight super hard monsters, and you can get all the way over here, get that base, bring it back to your camp, set it down. These ancient memory fragments also will unlock godlike abilities as well, so make sure to pick that up and just explore the entire area, but this is your number one priority. So then once you have that unlocked, you have your build, you have your base, I would recommend exploring every little inch of the map to unlock all those little passive things that you can do to increase your character's power. And then once you're done, what you're going to do is you're going to complete the main story quest. Once the main story quest reaches its conclusion in that individual area, it's going to allow you to travel to another location. There's essentially 4 main locations. And then when you travel to that other location, you're going to rinse and repeat the exact same process that I gave you here. Once all of the side quests have been established and you know where you're going and what to do, then you're going to go out and explore. Each of the 4 are going to have one of those totem bases as well, usually like in the clear opposite end of where you start. So you're going to look for those, look for the fragments, look for the ancient memory, and just complete the main story quest. But as long as you have 2 companions, you'll be introduced to the other 2 later on through the main story quest. And keep your upgraded material as you encounter those quests. So if you get the bounty board right away in the main area, you'll see there's probably a lot of 3 skull enemies, and they're very hard to kill. Do not approach them typically unless you're very good at the game or you want a 15-minute fight where you can't screw up. Just progress your items and get those levels up on your main weapon and your armor. That's what makes the difference on those really tough fights if you're seeing those 3 skulls and you just can't do any damage. Well, gang, hope this gives you some pointers on how to start, some items to collect, what to do. If it did, thumbs up, and I'll look at making some more videos about Avowed, and I appreciate you watching.